we had something called the Cultural Revolution. During the Cultural Revolution, lots of professors, social professors, intellectuals were targeted and locked up. My father was a university professor, and he was among those who been locked up. It's not even official jail because the whole justice system was collapsed. There's no justice system, there's no charge. It's almost like a concentration camp.
Welcome, everyone, to the One Moment Podcast. You have myself, Kevin Odom, one of the co-hosts here and the co-founders, and you have Mr. Josh, who is on here with us. We might have another co-host or two pop on later. Never know with us crew over here at the One Moment Podcast. We're here with a very distinguished young lady, and I'm going to say young lady because she is young. How old are you? Going on 35?
Yeah, right. Yeah. I was born in the 1960s.
Wow. So yeah, I'm gonna let her and Josh argue over who wants to do their intro, and then we're gonna kick it off with Mr. Josh, starting us off on the questions after the intros.
So my name is Josh Evans. I'm one of the co-hosts here at One Moment Podcast. Clinical mental health counseling student at Liberty University. And so pursuing dual licensures, all aspects of mental health I find very fascinating, as well as ways I can learn more and also advocate. And I practiced your name before we went live, but I'm going to try it one more time. Tong Ge.
Tong Ge.
Tong Ge.
Yeah, if you say the word great, stop at great. So that's Ge.
Okay, all right.
That's half great.
Miss Tong Ge, I understand that you've written some books and kind of want to talk a little bit about that, your most recent book, but also want to kind of talk on, your experience as a writer and love to know kind of where that all started. So I guess that's where I'm going to kind of start this off at today. What got you into writing? What motivated you?
Well, ever since I was a child, I fell in love with storytelling. I was born in the 1960s, and I don't know if you know that between 1966 and 1976 in China, I was born in China, we had something called the Cultural Revolution. So during the Cultural Revolution, lots of professors, associate professors, like intellectuals, were targeted and locked up. My father was a university professor, and he was among those who been locked up in. It's not even official jail because there's no the whole justice system was collapsed. There's no justice system. There's no charge. It's almost like a concentration camp. You don't need any charge. You don't need any crime. So my father was locked up for about 2 years. And after that, he was released, but he was suspended from work. Even though every evening he still had to go to join the political meetings. However, at the time, because my family, we lived on campus, that's a Chinese system. You live where you work. But 2 or 3 days out of a week, we had a power outage. So whenever there was a power outage, my dad didn't need to go to the meetings. Our family was raided twice. And somehow there's a 2-volume of a great book. It's called, English title is called The Strange Stories from a Chinese Studio. Or another translation is The Strange Tales from a Chinese Studio. It's a collection of nearly 600 short stories written by a writer or author in China in the Qing Dynasty. So we're talking about like hundreds of years ago. And it was like mostly fantasy and horror. But somehow those 2 volumes of this book survived the raid. So whenever Dad didn't have to go to the meetings, we would draw the curtains and cover up the windows, and we lit one single candle. And my dad and my mom and we would huddle around this candle, and my dad would read the story. And also sometimes he needed to translate the ancient Chinese into modern Chinese and read those stories to us. That's when I fell in love with storytelling. So then growing up, when I was in junior high, I decided to be a writer because my writing assignments, I always like number 1 in the class. Our system is that in every such class, the teacher would choose 2 or 3 good writings as an example to read for the whole class from the previous week. and mine was always chosen. And I won the writing contest, and so it gave me a great boost of the confidence. And that's when I decided to become a writer. However, when I was writing the entrance exam, after I passed the entrance exam for university, when I was choosing the major, I wanted to choose either Chinese literature or journalism. But my parents strongly objected because it was a dangerous occupation. So many writers and journalists, they were jailed, persecuted, not only during the Cultural Revolution, but ever since like 1949, pretty much, like in the 50s and 60s. So my parents wouldn't let me do that. So I studied finance and banking instead. So this is a long detour. So and also at the time, the Chinese law, Chinese constitution says that each Chinese citizen only had one opportunity to go to college, which means after you finish a degree, you cannot go back and get a second one. But today you can, but not in the 80s. So then after graduation, also the jobs were assigned. There's no free job market. So I was assigned to the same university where my dad worked. So I worked there for 3 years before I came to Canada as an international student. And then, I couldn't choose a different major like creative writing because when you need a scholarship, you have to have your bachelor's degree has to be in line, right? Has to be matched. You cannot just say, hey, I want to study arts. So I ended up studying agriculture economics at the University of Saskatchewan. And after I graduated, well, guess what? You need to find a job. So it took a long detour until I started writing my book in 2004. I did not know which angle to take to write the story until like one day I was in the garden and somehow there's an aha moment. We're talking about moment, right? Aha moment. I had this idea suddenly, I could do it this way. So the first, when I began, it was a series of letters. A sister in Canada writes those letters to the sister in China and recounting their family history. And not also I was written it in Chinese because I was not confident at all that I could write in English. However, after a while, I had to stop for two reasons. One was I was suffering something called repetitive strain injuries in my both arms from extensive computer work. So I was on disability between 2002 and 2004. By 2004, I thought I could start to write again, but I type, but I couldn't. My hands couldn't handle it. And also another reason is that I realized if I write in Chinese, I couldn't get any help. No beta reader, no critique group, no freelance editor, no publisher. So I realized I have to write it in English, but I was not confident. So there's next moment. I was actually looking for a ghostwriter online. And, there's a website you can post your project and the people will bid on it. So I got a few bids, but I remember this one gentleman from the States. He said that he could do it for me. And his condition was, came to my house, live here for a year. I provide room and board and pay him extra amount of money. Then he would write it for me. But in his email, I found the grammatic mistakes. So that was a moment. That's the second moment I realized I had to do it myself. There's no any other way. So by 2006, I started to take creative writing courses, start to read books on writing, and start to write at the same time. I first finished just the 8-chapter novella, and I sent it out to publishers and I don't remember if I sent out to agents as well, but publishers for sure, just small publishers. And one Canadian publisher, they gave me the feedback. Believe it or not, way back when some of them even give you feedback. Nowadays, they don't. They just say, hey, sorry, we passed, right? But the managing editor, he said that they have two group. They have a group of readers. They read my information. They had a debate because one group was for, one group was against. So eventually, the group who against the publication won the debate. But the main reason is that they sense there's a bigger story behind this. So novella, not only it was not a complete story, but also it's really hard to sell a novella. Easier to sell a novel and even collection of short stories, but the novella was hard to sell. That's what I was told. So this managing editor encouraged me to expand it into a novel. And that was, I think, 2012. So from 2012 to 2000 to 2023. Actually, from 2012 to 2018, I finished 240,000 words of fake huge novel. Then I couldn't find a publisher again, and I did not know why until a mentor of mine told me it was too long for literary fiction. Right, 240,000 words were too long. So she told me I had to divide it into 2 or 3 books. So I spent another year to divide it into 3 books. And by 2023, my first book was published. So the first book is based on my grandmother's story. The second book is based on my parents' story, mainly my mother's story. The third is based on my own story before I left China. So actually it's a trilogy, but so far only first book is published. All 3 books are finished because that's how, right, when you divide.
Yeah.
So that's,
Yeah, you finished that like 2 years ago, but yeah, just
yeah,
haven't gotten it essentially on paper yet.
yeah, that's right.
Interesting. So, okay, just so I get kind of the timeline right.
Mhm.
So you were in China and you completed your bachelor, and then you came to Canada for, was it a master's program?
Yeah, I was a master, master of science.
Okay, and you just never left?
No, I left China in 1988.
Uh-huh.
Before that, I also worked for 3 years. Then I left in 1988. We were supposed to go back to China after we finished our study here, but in 1989, the Tiananmen Square massacre happened. So both Canadian and the U.S. government allowed all the Chinese students to stay and apply for the immigrant. That's how
Uh-huh.
we stayed. I went back to visit, but I never, I don't want to move back. This home now, yeah.
Yeah. And so did your dad ever find work after he was put in essentially, like you said, a concentration camp? Essentially, there was no charge or anything like that. He was just, thrown in jail.
Yeah, no,
Um,
they were never fired. Again, the Chinese system, they don't fire. Like usually, they don't fire people. Unless if you, for example, you come like you're accused of be something like a counter-revolutionary, or in the 70s when China had the one-child per family policy, if you have a second child, you could be fired from work. But usually, either they lock you up, they let you out, they don't fire you. So afterwards, eventually, he began to teach again. Not only he, like all those professors, right? Especially after the Cultural Revolution, they were all returned to their work.
I see. And you actually ended up working in
The
the same
same,
university that he did.
yeah.
What was that like?
Well, at the time, this is the background of China in the 80s. Even though China opened its door to the Western world and also started economic reform, but we had something called a residential status. If your residential card dictate where you live and work. So once you are assigned to this job, and your residential status is transferred to this specific place, like a county, it was very hard to move around. There's no free job market. So the only way you change job, it's not like you go out and you look for a job. It's called a transfer. So you could reach out to other employers, but your current employer has to give you a reference letter. Without that reference letter, nobody would take you. So without another employer taking you, especially in a different city, you're stuck there. You couldn't leave that place. And also, we still had the food ration, like a green ration and the vegetable oil ration and the sugar ration. So let's say if you quit and you cannot find another job and you lost your food ration, you can buy food in the black market, but it will be major expensive. So you pretty much chained to where you are. And your boss is extremely important because if your boss doesn't want you to go, it's really hard for you to leave. That's what I experienced when I tried to leave China. Even
Yeah,
though, yeah.
you had to get that reference letter. If he won't giving it to you, then yeah, it
Well,
sounds like you weren't.
in my case, it's not a reference letter. It's to apply for passport. Because
I
in
see.
China at the time, you can't just go to, like in China, the police station, police bureau, there's the one issue the passport, but you can just not go in and get it. You have to have the application and get every level's approval from your teaching group to your department to the university, like president's office, and then to the local police station, and then to the next level police station. And you have to go through all that to even get your passport. And in my case, I was chatting with Kevin that after I started to work, I had a couple of admirers, so to speak. And one of them was the son of the president. So when I turned his family proposal, because in China at the time, it's like marriage is usually marriage proposal is presented from one family to another, not between the young people. So when his father sent a male person to our family and proposed the marriage, and the offer or the benefit was if I agree, the president would send me and his son to abroad study for graduate study and get the finance from Chinese government. But I turned them down. And from that moment, the father started to retaliate, and he tried everything to block me. Imagine my passport application need his signature. That's a long, long story. It's in my third book. I escaped China, even though everything was legal. I literally escaped China, and it was a very heartbreaking experience because when my father saw me off in a train station, I did not know that was the last time I saw another one. Yeah. I just wrote a piece for I think it's a online magazine. It's a magazine called it's called immigrants.ca. It's a Canadian publication. I just wrote a piece for talking about my experience recently. They haven't published yet, but that's what I have experienced.
Yeah, was the transition hard coming from there to you said like a open market or a free market society?
No, not at all, because we have freedom here, right? I mean, freedom, like we want to be free. It's almost a human, not only human nature. It's like animal nature. You have a bird in a cage. You open the gate, see if the bird will fly out or not, right? So I think freedom is worth so much, and I paid a heavy price for that. But here we're free to choose. We're free, like as long as you study hard, you work hard, you'll find a job. And also, it's just the culture is different. Of course, I like Canadian culture. I like North American culture because people are here. They're so much polite, and not only that, usually people don't bear a grudge. Like if you don't agree to marry my son, like you hardly. I mean, when I wrote my story, my critique group, there's somebody they didn't understand. This one gentleman, he said, like, why does he do that? He couldn't even understand. But in China, it's pretty common, actually. I don't know about today, but in the past, it was very common. If you don't do what I want you to do, I'm going to make your life miserable. So it's abuse of power. It's so widespread. It's not only the real powerful. So anybody who had any power, they try to either benefit from it or they try to make your life miserable. Even, let's say, a gate person, he could use his power to not let you into this gate, even though he should, right? Even though there's nothing wrong with that. So every person, as long as they're at this certain position, they would use their power. Or if you want to get through that, you have to bribe. So the bribery is so widespread. It's not just the top guys. It's like every single level.
Yeah, because it sounds like there were multiple gatekeepers just to get your visa passport. No, it sounded like just to apply for it. It sounded like there were so many gatekeepers. One being your admirer's dad, who was also, the president of the college. But it just sounds like there's so many people who need to sign off that I can imagine that bribery would, and corruption would be very, very widespread, or has the potential for being very widespread, especially when you talk about this inherent desire to be free. One question I wanted to ask, did you ever feel like oppressed, or where, you just feel like you can't breathe freely, or anxiety or anything from being in that system?
Yeah, very. Especially after I graduated from college, where I started to work. So I had two admirers. One was some of the president. One was my group leader. So when they were both turned down, they joined the forces.
Did you need both their signatures?
Um, I don't need my group leader signature. I need another senior teacher signature, but I do need the president's signature.
How'd you deal with that?
So after I received the admitting letter from University of Saskatchewan and also the scholarship, the first step is I wrote this application for visa, and I asked my dad to accompany me to my another group leader. This is a senior group leader. And she didn't want me to leave either because I was teaching two courses. If I leave, she had to find somebody else. So, but because my dad was like teaching in that college for over 40 years, he was well respected. He was very well known in his field in China. So he just took me into this teacher's home because we all live in the same neighborhood, right? And he just presented, what is the government policy, and what I did was completely comply with the policy. And he wished my group leader to sign the letter, so which she did. The next step is I have to go to my department to get another signature. And at department, there's some people against, some people for. So fortunately, the department head was he just returned from Canada. So he was a visiting scholar in Canada for 2 years. So his thinking was how do I put it? That's modern. Like he believed China needs to learn from Western countries. So eventually, after lots of, and we had our insiders to get information, who is for, who's against, and why, and all that. So eventually, the department signed off. And so now it goes to the college administration level, which the president need to sign off the application. But we knew he wouldn't, right? It would be a uphill battle. So my father took me to, in China, in every work unit, there's a dual system. One is the administration, like say president is the head of the university. Another is the Communist Party. So at each level, there's a party secretary. So they two pretty much have the same power at the same level. So this party secretary's wife was a teacher in my father's teaching group, and my father was the group leader. And my father helped her over the years for paper publication and all that. So that's why my father took me to their home, and the party secretary said, "Okay, I will help." And so we got his support. Then my mother also took me to the HR, the head of HR department, because this guy was a classmate of my mother. So then this guy said he would help. So we had our guy and they have their guy. So at the time, there's very common that for these young teachers to study abroad. Like in my college, like almost everybody was studying English. Everybody want to go out, right? So other people, they didn't have any problem. So I was a very special case. Others, young teachers, once they get a meeting letter and also get the finance, they could get a passport. But my case was eventually voted at a weekly meeting of the college administration level. And afterward, we learned from this party secretary that I won by 2 votes. It was very narrow. It's a very narrow winning because not everybody knew what's going on. They didn't know, like, why she could not leave. They didn't know president, but the president couldn't say openly, oh, because, right? He couldn't say that. So I won by 2 votes. Then we also get some connection, like we worked through our connection and the friends of friends of friends in a local police station. So when I get the proof, the application, I rushed to the local police station and presented to our guy. And then he looked at the application. He said, do you know what? He said, your president's signature is a signature stamp. in China, the custom, you don't sign it, you just stamp it, right, with your signature. So he said, your president's signature stamp is missing. And I did not know until I looked at the application, because I thought the administration already voted, to let me go. His signature was missing. So now what? I know if I go back to him, there's no way. He wouldn't even see me, right? I couldn't even see him. So went back to home and started to cry right away. And my parents said, okay, let's get this teacher soon to help, because we had this family friend. This guy is like a strategist. Oh, sorry, I couldn't say it right. So this guy is extremely smart and capable. So we got him to our family. Then we discussed now what we do. So teacher soon said, okay, he just learned that. I think a week after, a week after, the president will go to another city to attend a conference. He said, wait until he board the train, but not get off the train. Well, he was in the train. There's no cell phone at the time, so his office couldn't reach him, right? So wait until he board the train. Then you take this letter to his office and ask the secretary to stamp that, and make sure the HR guy will be there just in case, right? So we calculated everything until he was on the train. Then I went to his office, and as a young secretary, I said, look, this just must be a oversight, right? Look, all these signatures are here, just president's stamp is missing. So would you please do it? And the young woman said, no, I can't do that. I have to talk to him. I said, well, where is he? No, he's not here. Well, I can't wait. And then the HR guy was right in the same office, a huge HR guy just walked over and said, what's going on? It's almost like in a movie, and say, oh, come on. It's just, obviously it's an oversight. You want to, make that decision. Like you want to, something like stop, like make a mistake by not help. Anyway, so without words, the secretary just stamped it. And then I rushed to the local police station. I present everything. But the local police station, they had to verify everything. So it took some time. So I think it took another week. And then I went to see this guy in the local police station again. And he told me what happened. He said that morning at 7 a.m., he had a colleague was boarding a train to next level to Xi'an, which is a big city, to on business trip. He said, I just asked him to bring your application package with him. And so he left at 7. By 8 o'clock, the president sent somebody to the local police station side to stop me, to intercept me. So I said, well, if let's say he succeeded, let's say the package was still in your station, will you stop me? He said, I had to, like I have to, I have no choice. So I said, well, let's just suppose. He said, we went by 1 hour. I said, let's suppose he succeeded. What if I just quit my job? He said, well, do you know China just had a new policy? If anybody quit their job, this person is not allowed to leave the country for the next 5 years. So like in that system, you're blocked everywhere, right? So that's how when the package went to Xi'an, we also get our connections in Xi'an police station and friends of friends of friends. And eventually I got my passport. And when I was leaving home that morning, my parents didn't even dare to come out to see. Like Chinese tradition, you go out of your house, right? You see somebody will leave for a long trip. You do that, but or you even go to train station. But my parents didn't not, because the president's we live in the same residential area. Our building and the president building is just one next to each other.
You don't want them to see what's happening.
Yes, I didn't even have my luggage. I just had a shoulder bag or something. And my sister in Xi'an, she prepared my luggage for me. And so I left my home that day. But when I was in Xi'an, which is next the big city, right? I need to take train from Xi'an to Beijing. Then my father went to Xi'an, I think the second or third day. Eventually, he saw me off at the train station in Xi'an. That was the last time I saw him. And when I was in Beijing, I stayed with a friend. I told a friend, after I board the airplane, then you can send a telegram to my work unit to tell them, not before. So that's my experience. But when I arrived at US, I think a semester later or something, this happened to another Chinese student. He was actually in the airport, in Beijing airport. His work unit, sent 2 guys to the airport to stop him. And he had his luggages, and he just told the 2 guys, he said, okay, well, then looks like I have to go back with you guys. But just wash my luggage for me. I just need to go to wash. They said, okay. But his both luggage were there. So he went to washroom. He turned around. He had his passport, his visa, his air ticket with him. He just boarded the plane. Left this luggages with these 2 guys.
More clothes later, yeah.
That's how when he arrived, we need to help him, right? He need to borrow things from. He didn't bring anything with him, so that was how I left the country.
Does anyone else have that one tool that makes building a website a breeze? In an era driven by digital change, WebHash is the indispensable tool that holds the key to effortless website creation. Create websites that endure, defy censorship, and bypass any single point of failure. As cutting-edge technology redefines reality, seize the power to build beyond limits. Join the Web3 revolution now and forge paths others can only dream of. Visit our site today and build your legacy. Building my own space on the web was always a grind until I hit up WebHash. Their no-code builder is my ace. It's swift and solid. It's like rocking a digital fortress that's immune to the typical shutdowns. Level up your web presence without stress. Ready to stake your claim in the digital realm? Dive into WebHash today, connect your Web3 wallet, and get started. They have multiple subscription plans, from a free version to a lifetime subscription. Check them out today at webhash.com. Most importantly, they sponsor the One Moment podcast, helping to raise awareness to critical topics in the healthcare field. Our official website was built using the WebHash platform. Throughout the projects that the One Moment movement built on WebHash, they stood behind and supported it all the way. Sign up and start building your website today. Don't forget to visit onemoment.chain.box and subscribe to our social media channels.
Wow. Is that in your book?
Well, this is in my 3rd book, which
Okay.
hasn't been published yet.
Yes, but it is in the 250 word, 1,000 word novel that you broke up into 3 books. It's in that 3rd book.
This in the 3rd book, yes.
Okay. When you're going to write a book, because I'd love to talk about your writing style, how you get there. What does that look like? Do you just brainstorm, or do you I know I want to start here and then here? What does that look like for you?
My first 8 chapters novella was just based on my story since I was when I was a child. My experiences through Cultural Revolution, and also the final escape. But there's no in between. Like my teenager years, my college years was not in the book, so that's why it was so short. That's how I first started. Then when I was told I should expand it to a novel, then I went back to start from my grandmother's story. And I realized the letter format didn't work. So I changed to a traditional novel format, right? Just tell the story from the beginning. And but even after that, and also my mentor told me the pace was too slow for the first book. She said you need to speed up. Eventually, my now new chapter 1 is my old chapter 7. That's how much I cut it off. And also I need lots of help. I hired beta readers in addition to critique group, right? Beta readers, freelance editors. There's 2 types of freelance editors. One is called a copy editor, one is called a structural or developmental editor. So usually the right way to do it is you finish the whole book, you get a structure editor to go through it, and then give you advice on structural change. After you do that, then you finally you hire a copy editor to make sure your grammars, everything is correct. But in my case, I pretty much did everything twice, because when I was presenting my writing, I write every 2 chapters and I present my critique group. I had so many little grammatic errors that my friends started to correct this for me. I thought, no, this is not good, right? It's too much work for others. So Then I hired a copy editor on an installment basis. So I wrote every 2 chapters, sent it to her. She sent it back to me. Then I present to my critique group. But when the whole book finished, I need to hire a structure editor or developmental editor. After that is done, then once I make change, I need to hire a copy editor again, right? Because we
Yeah.
don't have like a chat GPT, we didn't have all this to help you.
Yeah. You didn't have anything like that. So you kind of did the second first, and then once you did the first second, you had to go back and do the second again as far as reading the proofreading after the structure. So
Wow. Yeah, I hired 2 rounds of copy editors, 2 rounds of structure editors, 2 rounds of manuscript evaluators, plus critique group, plus friends, plus beta readers. It's just, yeah. But I think that's why the book has been winning prizes, right? I didn't even update my bio. So right now it's won like 4 literary prizes, like International Book Award, and being the finalist for like 5 or something. So
all those editing paid off.
and it's also like a 20 years of full sweat and blood, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, was there anything that you were kind of like hesitant to put in your book?
I didn't. Well, I hesitated, but I did put in the book. It's about the romantic relationship between the protagonist, the Golden Phoenix, and her adopted son, because it's based on real life events, right? Stories. So even today, I didn't even tell my cousin I wrote this book because I'm afraid. Because they were both single, they lived together, but it was a big like taboo. Like older woman marry young person was a scandal. Older man, like 20, 30 years older man, got a young wife, that was okay. That's always okay in Chinese culture, but not the older woman and the younger guy. So even my family, I'm afraid that they would think I am tarnishing my grandmother's reputation. So it is in the book, but I also, one of my manuscript evaluator, there was a blind evaluation. I don't even know who that person is. I know it's a lady. She had such a strong opinion about that. She basically said, I tell you, your editor, your reader will have a problem with this. They wouldn't appreciate this. They would turn against you.
Wow, so some strong opinions about that. Then I take it.
But now it is published, like all the feedback I get, nobody ever said, oh, shouldn't be in there. I'm not feel comfortable about that. And actually I got some pretty good feedback even for that part. So yeah, that's the part I was excited.
Now, I know at first you were kind of talking about essentially not feeling like you had whether the writing level or the confidence in your own writing, and you were kind of, went to that thing with the guy, and he was like, "Oh, I can do it," but then misspelled his own email, so you're like, "This is not it." Like,
Yeah.
what kind of barriers or what kind of troubles did you run into when you first started writing? Obviously, anytime I do anything new, I'm a little bit more hesitant. I make a few more mistakes, that kind of thing. But what was it like for you?
I think first the language, because Chinese language is so different from English. We only have one tense. We only have present tense. We don't have past, future, past perfect. We don't have all those. Our verbs do not change with the subject. We say I do, she do. We don't say she does. We don't have plural. We only have singular. So sometimes I still, when I talk, we say 1 dog, 2 dogs, 3 dog. Our preposition is different from used differently from English. So even though theoretically I knew, but as I write, I forget. That's why I need so much help. So language is a big thing, especially for, there's English, there's rules you can follow, but there's lots of times there's no rules. It's just the way people speak. And as I said, first generation immigrant, I came here in my late 20s. It was pretty hard. And second, of course, is the craft itself. So I think my particular challenge is I didn't have a sense of pacing. As I said, I didn't know I'm too slow, I'm too fast. I did not know, should I include this part or not? So when I was seeking professional advice, I had another problem because I was asked, get advice from different people. So when 2 professional editors give you conflicting
I see
advice.
where this is going. Yeah.
I did not know. I was really struggling.
Yeah.
Even now, like the book published, got really good reviews and feedback. But one feedback from I think the Google rate. Oh, this person put his comment everywhere, and he gave me the like a 3 stars, like a one lowest star I have ever got, and he said it's too fast. That's too fast. That's his main complaint. It's too fast. That's his only complaint. It's too fast. So so you never know. But I think the second book now I know. I feel much confident. I know what it should include, which shouldn't, right? Maybe eventually the editor at the publishing house will give me some suggestions. I'm always open to that. But at least I know.
You kind of know your style now. You know what needs to be slower, what needs to be quicker. You feel like you kind of gained that insight. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's right. Yeah.
And I've been sitting here listening to y'all too, man, and it's absolutely a beautiful back and forth here. Wow. My mind is just blown on your experience right now. I was curious, right? Because I too was in a dissertation program, or in the middle of a dissertation, and I experienced conflicting pieces myself. One professor would say everything's good. The other professor would say, nah, it's completely jacked up. You need to redo it. This, that, and the third. So after 2 years, I'm just like, you know what? My hat's off to you. Took my education a different path. So I'm curious, with the lack of experience with the English language, the writing and all of that, what was your experience like when you get the editing back? Did you struggle with trying to fix the edits or correct the edits, or how was that experience with you?
You mean from freelance editors or from the editor at the publishing house?
Yeah, whenever you would send it out to your editors and
Yeah.
they would tell you that you need to fix this or you need to fix that, did you struggle with the understanding of it? Like, what was going on with that process? What was that process like for you?
I'm pretty open to feedback and suggestions. Usually I do what they suggest, but if I strongly believe in something, I would insist and I would explain. But fortunately, like even with the editor at publishing house, we never run into like conflict. We never run into something we absolutely couldn't agree upon. So that's not a huge problem for me, but I would say I had a really bad experience with ChatGPT. I had a really bad experience with it. Because by the last round of editing, when there's only a quarter portion of the book was like need the last round of editing, because I also found out my editor, even she make mistakes because we're human, right? So I thought just to be absolutely sure that I would make no any mistake in this book, I put this last part into ChatGPT, right? I did it portion by portion, like 250 words a time, and ask ChatGPT to edit it for me, correct all the mistakes. And so I did that. That was the last day before the Good Friday of 2024. 2023. I worked from the day before until 4 a.m. in the next day, like Good Friday morning, and I got all that done. And because next day Good Friday was a deadline, so I knew we couldn't go back and forth at all anymore. So I just sent it off, and I didn't keep my track change topic. So when she got my last version, she called me by like 5 p.m. that day, Good Friday, said, "What you have done? What have you done?" I said, "What?" She said, "Your voice is gone. Your voice is erased." So I told her what happened. She said, ChatGPT, well, that when ChatGPT just came out, right, not long ago, she didn't even know. She said, that chat box did a horrible thing for you. So fortunately, she had a copy, like my previous draft. We spent hours on Good Friday to try to page back my old version. And she said with all that text, she said ChatGPT's correct editing, only one place, one sentence, ChatGPT's version was better than mine. And so not only that, finally we did all that and sent it off. And because I had this repetitive strain injuries condition, right, from 20 years ago, because of that, I had to take a disability leave for another 10 months because my hands were totally gone. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't work. I couldn't do anything. So I think that big warning, a word of caution to use any AI, because even now, I now learn how to give its instructions, all kinds of conditions. But after a few pages, the AI would forget that. It will go back to his version. He will easily hijack your voice. It become like he's telling the story, right? Even though you tell him over and over and over, and he would use modern English. He would use like. So I told him, I said, you can edit this for me, but I have to tell you, this is a 12 years old girl in the 1940s in China, and don't change any of my cultural references and all this. And but make the dialogue conversational, right? 12 years old, right? Not the highly educated. Okay, his version, like the 12 years old Chinese girl in the 1940s would say something, not 1940s, 1930s. Oh, super cool. Oh, I'm thinking. So if you're not careful, you lose your voice. Just for editing, never let it create anything for you, because, well, first of all, no publisher would publish your work if you have even a paragraph or portions created by AI, right? But also, even for editing, you have to be extremely careful. And in terms of creation, I don't think these AIs are very smart. They're not. People say, oh, they can write story. No, they cannot write stories. They can write synopsis. They can write outlines. They can never write stories. And even their synopsis, their outlines are sometimes pretty horrible. One time I gave ChatGPT a topic. I said, okay, I gave you these things, right? A bobcat, a little rabbit, and another thing, a cat, a house cat. They somehow found themselves trapped in the area in a forest. And how do they survive? Like, what's the end? Just tell me the story. So you know what ChatGPT told me? ChatGPT said, okay, at first, the rabbit and the house cat was afraid of bobcat, but after a while, somehow they become friends. And the bobcat would kill some other small animals and help this rabbit and this cat, and eventually they all survive. They become good friends. Yeah, so don't ever trust it.
Definitely, for sure. Yeah, I would never use Chat GPT or any type of AI to write a book for me. No. Nah, I mean, listen, I use it to help do the editing for these write-ups for all these videos. That's
You
about
can do
it.
some research, yeah, but yeah, research
Right,
is pretty good, yeah.
right, yeah. Wow.
I'm currently in grad school, and I've read one too many horror stories of people using it to try and edit
Yeah.
some papers or something for them, and you can get kicked out of school for that.
Wow.
They don't play with it at all. At the very least, you will fail that class. So
I have used I have used AI in one of my most recent courses. I used AI because that was part of the assignment, right? And so I used it as an example.
Yeah.
Just to show, you know what I mean? So I'm like, this is, not full accurate information, and this is accurate information or what have you. But
Yeah.
I did have to use it, but it was interesting. It was really interesting. And it was only like a paragraph or two. It wasn't like the whole paper. But
Mhm.
I agree with you, Josh. Like, it'll get you in trouble. It really will. I mean, it's because you're not engaging with the literature. You're not really, learning. You're not processing the information like you were just, explaining, Miss Tong, where you were sharing your experience through the editing process. Your English isn't your first language, so you didn't, and then you explained how there's differences in the language. AI does not get in depth with the learning process through that. So I'm glad that you shared your experience on that, for sure.
Yeah, and sometimes it's give you opposite meaning. It's actually turn your words around, and AI cannot feel. That's a big problem. In my second book, I wrote, when we develop the callus, actually it make our hands or feet tougher, right? But AI, when AI try to edit that, AI figure, no, the callus will prevent you from walking. If you have callus on the sole of your feet, you cannot walk. I'm saying, excuse me. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah, I did not. Yeah. So I guess this is one of the things I'm learning today is don't use AI to write.
No, not for fiction. I'll be careful. Just be careful. Yeah.
Absolutely. Look, I got one more question. Then I'm gonna throw it back to Josh. You shared about growing up when you and Josh were going back and forth. I was curious because I didn't hear you say it right out directly. Do you feel like your upbringing and some of the stuff that you experience, maybe family background, your personal experience, do you feel like that kind of motivated you to write about some of that stuff growing up, maybe for educational purposes, for people to understand? Like, do you feel like that was any type of the motivating factor for you?
I think suffering, pain and suffering is motivating.
Okay. Pain and suffering. And what, I guess this is my follow up question. What do you feel like you would like people to take away from your books then, as far as that be the case? And then, Josh, I'm going to throw it back to you after that one.
Well, pick from the book. I think, first of all, freedom is never free. I think when you get freedom, either you pay the price or somebody else pay the price for you. So treasure it and be vigilant because you could lose it at any time. And the wars are never so far from us. Actually, it's happening right now. Don't talk about wars lightly. It's like horrible for ordinary people. It shouldn't be war anywhere in this world. And so I want people to take that away. And also, actually, your previous question. Now I thought I have another version or another. How do I put it? Not another version, but another story I forgot to share about. You said when you get feedback, what happens, right? In the later stage of my book, I didn't have a problem with that. But in the early stage, when I was breaking the book into three, and when we will focus on the first book, a mentor of mine, because she had a commercial publishing background, so she highly suggested me to write the book as a commercial fiction. And which, like, you start with the conflict at the peak, right? And then you try to work the first half of the book as a backstory into the second half of the book. I couldn't do that. I couldn't. And I was so, like, I tried to change it based on her feedback, but each draft is getting worse. Each one is worse. And even she knew that. She said, well, this is even worse. So eventually I felt, no, I'm not a commercial fiction writer. I could not force myself to become a commercial fiction writer. So I had to, eventually we parted our way and I wrote it the way I could. Because there's one very scary moment that I thought all my 20 years of hard work, my peers and the stride will be all wasted. Is that possible? This book will never see the light of the day. That was the most scary moment I've ever experienced. So sometimes you have to be, like, if you cannot, don't change yourself or your writing style for someone else, even though that person always all good intention. I think that takes experience, takes confidence. But if you don't know what to do, just leave it there for a while. I left my book there for quite some time before I picked it up, and I realized, no, I have to write it my way.
Wow. Thanks for sharing your experience with that. And just kind of you're sharing the book with us and being able to kind of speak freely about it as well as your own experience. I know we are kind of getting to that point where we need to start winding down for the day. But first, I always want to do this. Where can our viewers get your book at?
It's available on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, in Canada, Indigo, Kobo, Walmart, Apple Read. It's pretty much over. And also in some of the libraries in States, but I found most of them are university libraries. Very strange. Just not hardly any public libraries, all university libraries. I'm thinking, does that mean this book has some historical value? Like a value in history, right? Because the university libraries, I didn't even know how they got to know this book. And maybe your library has it. Check it out.
I might check on that later. Then a lot of times, a lot of things are.
Yeah.
But yeah, I could definitely understand why they would be in university library. So, a place where you want young minds to essentially, collect ideas, kind of form opinions, and see different perspectives. Absolutely, I could understand how it would be there. If somebody wanted to contact you personally, do you have any avenues to do that? Do you have a website or anything like that?
Yeah, my website is tong-ge.com. So I have my email address in my website, tong-ge.com.
Okay, and the name of the book, just so we make sure our viewers can.
It's called The House Failure. And by the way, I need to explain why it's called the house failure, because in Chinese culture, like in the old time, a woman who marries a widower is called a house failure. Yeah, women didn't have much rights way back when. It's just house failure.
Yeah.
You have the house.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I always like to kind of give you the freedom to kind of say, like, hey, if anybody else is in my shoes, or, whether it's writing a book to, trying to essentially leave an oppressive government, anywhere in between, what's the two best pieces of advice that you have?
You mean for writers?
Anything, anywhere you can see that's, of any value of importance. What are the things that stand out to you?
I think be true to yourself. Don't bind yourself just for somebody else's expectation or rule. And also, there's not every, like, how do I put it? From my own experience, freedom is so important. Like, not everything is tradable. You cannot trade your marriage or yourself or your body for some so-called benefit. Because I've been interviewed recently by a Chinese YouTuber, and one of his questions are, well, why can't you just marry this guy, the son of the president? At the time I said, I couldn't cheat myself and cheat others, but afterwards I'm thinking, not everybody you can put, a price tag on it, so you can sell it. And if you do that, I think you start to damage your own soul. And I think probably later hate yourself. So yeah, be who you are, believe what you're believing in, and be strong.
Wow. Awesome. Thank you very much for sharing that. Thank you very much for sharing your story.
You're welcome.
I greatly appreciate it. Kev, do you have any lasting questions?
Absolutely powerful and amazing. And I know it's taught me a lot as far as the history back in your homeland. And, it's taught me a lot as far as like development and growth post getting out of oppression. And it's also taught me a lot as far as when you have a second language, or when you have a primary language that's not English. So I've learned a lot myself. I don't have any further questions. I'm grateful that you were able to come. Thank you.
You're welcome. And thank you for having me here.